Hi, I'm Ernest, tribal elder for the Sonic Tribe. I'm back to talk about capping college pro football, NFL. Last week, I'm going to recap. I went 3-2 as far as my strong opinions, which was not good. But I just want to go over some of what happened. I'll try to. First pick I had was Tulane, and Tulane they covered. But when I look back at the box score, I see that they actually scored 2 touchdowns that were not from the offense. One of them was a kickoff return, the other one was an interception. So if you took away those 14 points, they actually would have lost that game. So I'm not gonna, and that's gonna be, and they only, 86 yards passing? That's weird. Okay, so I mean, I'm gonna start fading Tulane. I'm not going to talk about them too much unless something develops. The next one I had Cincinnati, and they covered. I think Cincinnati's pretty solid. I'm going to be riding them until otherwise. I didn't really recommend USC Michigan, but I have to comment on that. Is that Michigan still USC could not run on them, and Michigan runs somewhat, and they're having a quarterback situation that they could still be in the playoff picture depending on the development of that quarterback. The next game, I had TCU and SMU. That was a big 0 there for me. SMU ran the ball down their throats, and I didn't see that coming. I don't know. Once again, I'm trying to. I think it's too early to start getting into these middle to lower level teams and think that you can consistently cap just by the numbers. Okay, so that right there, I take that loss. The Tennessee, I expected a lot more. I thought they were going to run the score up and they're going to go up to the 30s. We saw that number, and once again, though, they did cover. So I'm not now. So that's 3. That's 3-1. But then I took K-State, and I mean that one I still inexplicable to me. I'm not going to. K-State is another team that I had in my mind from what I saw this year, what they've done, that they were a slightly higher level than BYU, and BYU just ran the crap down their throats, and that is inexplicable to me. I'm not going to dwell on this. It's just that I think that once we get into the 4th, 5th week, that's when the teams are going to be established as what they are, what they can do, their strengths, their weaknesses, So anyway, that was college last week. As far as the NFL, now the NFL, same thing. I had a pedestrian week in the NFL. The things that stood out to me is that some teams that we thought that this team's they're going to be dead all year, all of a sudden their quarterbacks spring to life. They show signs of life. For example, you got Washington. What they did to Cincinnati, I don't think anybody expected that. Cincinnati has a high tier reputation, and Cincinnati has real problems. They really can't run the ball, and when they can't run the ball, if they play teams that can run it on them and control the clock, then Burrow's only going to have so many opportunities. And if he doesn't have, if he has to get most of his first downs by his passing, he could be in trouble, especially if he's still being bothered with his finger. So I would have to fade Cincinnati right now. Washington is looking like a team that can run the ball on most teams, not all teams, but most. And this quarterback was pretty efficient. Got to give him credit for that. So I would elevate Washington, put him somewhere in the middle, and maybe project him to go higher. Buffalo, they took care of business. They're looking like what we consider them all along, a top-tier team, a playoff team. And Jacksonville, I mean, what can you say? They really can't run. Their quarterback is erratic, and I don't expect to see the welcome mat out for him by the end of this year. He's probably going to have to make some move. Whether he can develop into a long-term effective quarterback in the NFL, it's 50-50. I don't know at this point. I don't know. I don't really think so. Now we had Detroit. Detroit, like I said last week, has a legitimate running attack. Not a real strong one, but they do run the ball without needing their quarterback to get half the yards. Unlike Arizona, which they get not most, but maybe 40-50% of their running yards is by their quarterback, Murray. And you don't want that. I mean, you can get away with it if you're up against a team that's not going to run the ball down your throat. I mean, if you can control the clock somewhat, but with your defense can keep them off the field, then you can be effective to a point. But if they can't run the ball, then they're going to meet up against top-level teams that'll shut them down. And you see Murray running around like I don't know, Arizona 500 team at best. I think Chicago. We saw Chicago's. I mean, when they played last week against Indy, the week before they only scored 10 offensive points, even though they won the game, which tells you their quarterback is. Well, everybody was high on him, but now we're beginning to see. No, he hasn't established himself yet. All the preseason hype was all that, just hype. And they're in trouble because they can't really run the ball either. And their defense is mediocre at best. The top teams will shred them, especially when Chicago can't, hold on to the ball and kill some of that clock. Indy the same way. They really can't run. Their quarterback, he gets half of their rushing yards. I mean, these dual threat guys, honestly, I've seen them coming up since the early 90s. And if you give me one name of a dual threat quarterback that has played for 10 years consistently, a consistent winner, played deep in the playoffs, was successful, or even a Super Bowl, I don't think there's such a thing, to tell you the truth. And anyway, I'll get into that later, but maybe not this one, but I have my own theories. And let's just move on with what happened to recap last week. Seattle is getting a lot of props now that they're definitely on the upward trend. Their defense seems to be putting pressure on the quarterback. And Geno Smith, who years past, thought that this guy wasn't going to be around much longer, he's starting to show resilience, and he can close the deal, at least against the teams that they should be. Okay? So that was to be expected. And then last week also, I warned you, beware of the Dalton. The Dalton. You can say, well, you don't look like much to me. Well, opinions vary. And if you know what I'm talking about, I mean, that's the movie Roadhouse back in the day. He stepped up. He came back, looked like he did in the past. If he can keep that up, Carolina I think their offense can get, jacked up for it. Can their defense stand up? That's the key right there. If their defense can at least get somewhat, respectable, they can be irrelevant in that league, in that division. Now, Baltimore and Dallas, I expected Dallas to go down, and they did. what I saw with that is that I don't think that Prescott is the problem. I think Prescott has been used to, like I said before, he's used to having a running team that can dominate, that can get 2/3 of the first downs. I mean, and he just has to get that occasional third down conversion, which, you know, he can do. He's successful. He's been a long-term quarterback. I'm not sure if he started out as a dual threat. I think he did, but he's learned to read his progressions, and he's successful in, at least in the regular season. But this season's different. This season he's playing catch-up because his defense is collapsed, and he doesn't have that running back cushion to be able to go in and make those passing plays pretty much when they want it. No, he has to be the guy, and he can't do it. So anyway, that was a good call. But the Chargers in Pittsburgh, a solid team. They're going to be plus 500 plus, maybe a little bit higher depending on their quarterback development. Whether or not Russell Wilson goes to Miami or not, I don't think it really matters. I think it's just an interesting story. But the Chargers and Pittsburgh are basically running teams. As we know, Harbaugh, he's going to put emphasis on that. But Herbert did not step up and carry. In some games, if you're going to be a top shelf quarterback, you have to carry the team on your shoulders. And whether he's going to develop that, he can put the numbers up, but when he's having to be the guy because his running is not controlling, dominating the line of scrimmage, that yet remains to be seen if he can be that guy. And he's injury prone. So I would kind of fade or shade a bit the Chargers. I would I raise up Pittsburgh. And anyway, now Houston, they were hyped up in the preseason, and now we know, okay, they're not really what we thought. And Minnesota was a stronger team overall to begin with. And Darnold, well, he's stepping up and playing like a veteran quarterback. But now his injury for this week, that's, well, I mean, I would avoid looking at Minnesota. So anyway, that was a recap for last week. I was at what, 3-5 in the NFL. I mean, a lot of surprises. Like I said, the first couple of weeks, it's you assume things from the preseason and the first game hype, and sometimes they don't play out, and a lot of people, most of us, get caught. So I'm going to look forward from 4 to 8 or 9 season on both college and NFL. That's when you know the teams have developed to what they are, and before injuries become a real problem, and before the weather becomes a real problem. So anyway, this week, September 28th, Saturday, I'm looking at Louisville and Notre Dame. Now, Louisville last week, they're undefeated. People are highly regarding Louisville, but Louisville, they didn't score they had 2 defensive touchdowns last week. So, I mean, if you're going to go by last week, their game that they played, I would be cautious, because, you know, when you knock off that many points, you're going to assume that they're going to score enough to at least cover or win the game or the total. But if really, I don't think they're going to score that much. I don't see a ceiling of more than 20 points that they're going to score against Notre Dame. So in Notre Dame, I think they have a quarterback change. I'm not sure. I didn't really look into it. I think it was Leonard, their quarterback last week. His numbers were respectable, but the other quarterback is the one that comes in and he does something with his limited time. I expect Notre Dame. To me, this number is pretty low. I mean, honestly, if you just want to money line this game, to me that's about a solid play as any I see this week. So that way, I'm going to go with Notre Dame as a money line. Now, the next game I'm looking at, I'm not sure if I'm going to actually make a play on it, but you got Virginia Tech and Miami, Florida. Now, Virginia Tech has lost to two teams, mid-tier teams, mid-level teams, has lost and has won against the lower-level teams. They're not. I think they're highly overrated. Okay, so I mean, I know that number 17 is probably going to be at 19 by game time, or 18 or 19. That's a lot to lay, but Miami's one of those teams that they're one of those teams that if they're going to score on you, they're going to score, and they're not going to stop. Some teams do. Miami, I can see Miami going 40 plus on this game. But to me, 34, I think that the books are looking at a 34-17 game. That's why they have the number at 17. So, just anybody that wants to take Miami, I would say, hey, that's a good bet, but that's a high number. Be cautious. I'm not sure if I would go for it. Now, one that I will go with is South Florida, USF. South Florida is playing Tulane on the road, and they're getting 6.5 points. Now, I already talked about Tulane, that I overrated them myself. They covered for me last week, but that doesn't really matter. USF should run the ball quite well. I mean, I can see USF getting up to 160, 180 yards on the ground, meaning they're going to do things. Their quarterback is going to have the ability to make plays, maybe not a lot, but when you get that much time, you're getting the ball. The defense is, on every snap, is looking for the run. They're not looking to rush the passer. So it's quite comfortable for the quarterback, which, like I was talking about with Prescott in Dallas, that he was comfortable not having, the rush coming at him on every snap. See, so I think that in this game here, I'm going to take the points plus 6.5. I think they're going to beat Tulane, but you get 6.5. I'll take it. Another game that I'm not going to play, but you have to look out for. It's a big time game. You got Kentucky getting 17 at Mississippi. Now, Kentucky has trouble scoring, period. Mississippi was rolling everybody, and then against Kentucky, what did they do? So, I mean, against, Oklahoma, right. So, now, I'm not sure what to expect here. I don't think UK is going to score more than, 17 points. So you think Mississippi is going to roll to 40, 35, 40 plus? Take Mississippi. But, at this point right here, I just leave it alone, or I'm just trying to tell you. It's unpredictable when you see these kind of numbers. I mean, with UK holding Georgia to what was it, 25 points? Well, I mean, that was a low number. So, I mean, how do you explain that? If you don't explain it, you just don't. I'm not going to put my trust on any of those two teams, not for a while anyway. Let's see. One team that we've been seeing, James Madison. They're a juggernaut. They run the ball. They can pass, and they're beating teams. They beat North Carolina. They put 70 points on them. Jesus, that's North Carolina is a middling team, and they're down this year. They really can't beat any team at their level. I mean that can actually control their run because they have no quarterback. But Ball State is, I mean, I can see James Madison laying 70 on them, but I can see Ball State laying 20 plus, or at least 20 on James Madison. So you know what? 56, that's a low number. I mean, for a team that scored 70 by themselves the week before, that's 56. I take the over. I'm just taking the over. You know, that's number 2 pick for me. The next one here, I want to give you just a warning in Arkansas and Texas A&M. People believe A&M is going to do the job, and I think it's, to me, it's 50-50. It's just that Arkansas seems to sneak up on people, that they get shaded, and then but Arkansas has historically had a strong line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So they can run up on a team that can't control their pass rush, or they can't run on them, or if Arkansas can run on them, I don't care, you know, they might upset. They might upset some people. So, and to me, I'm not saying this is going to happen this week, but it's a possibility. Beware on that game. I had Fresno State and UNLV. I think we know what the UNLV quarterback is. Well, he took himself off the team, all because of this portal window situation where he was promised some money and he didn't get it. And you can't blame him. The next game I have North Carolina, that got 70 points posted on them last week. Now they're going to Duke. Now these two teams have been historical rivals. I think they played every year. I'm not sure, but they're the same state. So these are rivals. And Duke is a bit up this year. They won't completely shut down. They won't completely shut down anybody. But UNC should get their share of points, and Duke should get their. I mean, and the number is 56 again. I'm strong lean on the over on that game, on Duke UNC. Okay, so that's another over that I'm recommending. Let's see, the next one here. So anyway, as we're going along here, I have Illinois getting 17 points at Penn State. Now, Illinois, they beat Nebraska last week. Nebraska only got that's 50 points, 50 yards on the ground. I don't think Illinois is really a team that can really stop the run that way. I think that's just in my opinion, Nebraska, a weakness in Nebraska's part. I don't think Illinois is going to get anywhere near 200 yards that they got against Nebraska. I think they're going to get like 120, which tells me that they're not going to really look like anything that Penn State has to worry about. Now, this 17 number it's a borderline number. I admit we're looking at a 34-17, 31-17 type, which is close to the total with 48. So in this game here, I think Penn State might make a statement here, but I'm just saying I wouldn't put so much on Illinois, because I think they're a little more than slightly overrated here. The next, I have Cincinnati. They're at Texas Tech, and they're getting 3.5 points. Now, I look at the numbers, and Texas Tech is the kind of team that, another one that if they can roll the points on you, they're going to roll the points. But if they can't, meaning that if they can't run the ball, not so much really dominate, but control the line of scrimmage, they're not going to do anything. Their quarterback is not really effective unless they have that running. And I think Cincinnati will be able to prevent them from that quarterback from getting comfortable. I don't think Texas Tech. I think they're overrated. I think Cincinnati. I mean, Cincinnati. I think it's a 50-50 shot they're going to win the game, but they're getting points now. If you want to tease this one, well, now you get 9.5, and I just think that Cincinnati's not going to get rolled by Texas Tech. So another one, a strong recommendation for Cincinnati as a teaser. And if you're not, if they lost by 3 points, they still cover. And I think that they're a better team, not that much more, but better than Texas Tech, and they will be able to prevent that quarterback from lighting them up. So anyway, those are my college picks. You got, okay, I'll recap everything after I'm done with the NFL. Now, this week you got Dallas going to New York Giants. They're giving 5 points here. Now the Giants, they're not gonna run the ball down the throat of Dallas. So we might see their defense, because these teams are familiar with each other, maybe their defense is going to perform at least at an average or a middle level. They're not going to collapse like we've seen them collapse the last few games. And the Giants still, well, they're the Giants. They're I don't expect too much from them. They might go up to 20, 24. I think Dallas will answer this game here. I would consider Dallas, but then again, like I said, if the Giants can put a pass rush on, and Dallas can't run the ball, and he gets harassed, Prescott gets harassed, this game could go either way. And I'm not really recommended. I'm just kind of like giving you what I think the status of Dallas is, and I wouldn't trust them at this point. Denver going to New York Jets. It's the way Denver ran the ball last week. I didn't believe it. I didn't think it was possible. But they did. And what we see with this week, though, I think that the Jets, they're not going to let that happen. I think the Jets are like a middling to going to a higher tier, and if their defense can gel, and Rodgers can get some receivers that he's, beginning to trust, the Jets can be a force in the AFC East. And I think in this game here, 7.5, if it was 7, I would say, you know what, that sounds good to me. That half point might scare you off. So on that right there, that's a judgment call for me. Now, you got Cincinnati. They're giving 5.5 at Carolina. Now, like I said last week, the Dalton factor. Cincinnati, they're not really. I don't see them putting that much pressure on Dalton because they're not stopping the run the way they need to, and so that's going to take the pressure off him. He might have another big day against the Bengals, and I don't see Burrow going to be playing catch up, and if you can't run the ball, he's going to have a hard time keeping up. So I'm just giving you, to me, it's a no play because it's a game to watch here. Cincinnati right now they're on the brink of falling into a trap they may not be able to dig themselves out of this season. Now you got Philly at Tampa Bay giving 2.5. I think that number is too low. I think Tampa Bay got exposed last week. Philly's going to run the ball effectively enough, and when you got, you know, the quarterback running the ball at least a third to half of the yards on the ground, I mean, I'm taking the points. I'm laying the points for Philly. 2.5. You know. Now the next game, you've got the Rams going to Chicago. The Rams, although their injuries, they're not at full strength, I think they still got enough to beat Chicago that it really has no offense. And I just don't see that Chicago, how they're going to score points, you know, against this quarterback here. And we saw what he did to the Niners last week in the fourth quarter. So I'm going to go with LA -1 or 2. It might be 2, as long as it doesn't get to 3. That's a solid pick there. Now, this next game, I'm Minnesota at Green Bay. Minnesota, I think Darnold's not going to play. If that's the case, I'm not going to take a shot on that. Green Bay seems to be a running team, and a team like that is always going to be dangerous, especially if their quarterback can be efficient and hold it together. And so far, I haven't seen a reason to say he's not. So I'm just going to leave that game alone. The next game, Washington at Arizona. Washington's getting 5 points. Okay, now, Washington has proven themselves. They can control the clock. They can run the ball. They're definitely going to run the ball well against Arizona. And once again, Arizona, they got outrun by Detroit last week. We saw that their quarterback, Arizona's quarterback Murray, he's going to have to resort to scrambling around and trying to get, you know, play catch up. So in this case here, if you're still wary about Washington, hey, +5, +6, then you're getting 11 points. So to me, I would just make this a strong Washington teaser pick. You're getting 11 points. And, you know, they're going to run the ball. I mean, there's one right there. Good day.